All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Harmless Dave here now, talking about real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, and just like yours truly here. Okay, so Steve Perry was climbing the charts. He was up to number 14 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary charts, a chart that has probably been in stagnation mode since the mid-1990s when various formats started to collapse. What I mean by that is songs can stay on this chart for weeks, months, even years. It's really bizarre. I don't completely understand that philosophy. And part of it might be because there's so little in the way of music that gets added to these radio stations, which essentially play a whole bunch of music from the 80s and 90s, and maybe a few tracks from the early 2000s. They may even go back into the 70s a little bit, depending on the type of format it is. But for the most part, what you're getting is a station that will recycle. You know, the Ed Sheeran song has been playing on these radio stations literally for 2 years and still charting on many of these radio stations. It's just bizarre. You know, in the old days, a song would ascend the chart and then get to its peak position and then fall back and then be done with itself. You know, typically, if the song had a very long run, it might be like 30 weeks, 20 weeks, something like that. Occasionally longer, but very rarely the song spending more than that amount of time on the charts. Steve Perry's song has only been on the charts for 5 weeks. And, you know, I get the sneaky suspicion that most of these radio programmers don't even want to play this. They know they might have to. Maybe the label called them, said, hey, you know, Steve's got this video coming out. He's a legend. He's an icon. He's got a stronger voice than anybody currently on your radio station as we speak. I know you're playing 16 different Taylor Swift songs at the same time. I know Cardi B is a thing, but can you make a little room for the voice? And, you know, the radio programmers are like, well, let me call my bosses at iHeartRadio and see if, you know, they'll allow me to play this. Or better yet, you know, this is the conversation the executive from Steve's label is having with somebody high up at iHeartRadio. I mean, I don't know how it works anymore. In the old days, we used to get records that would show up, CDs, CD singles in the old days, obviously, those vinyl disc things that aren't really in vogue, although vinyl is making a bit of a comeback as far as, you know, DJs and music collectors and so forth. But the bottom line is we used to get the physical piece of merchandise. Sometimes, in the case of a song by Julian Lennon, it was completely blank. The Julian Lennon song freaked me out. There's a tune called Veloute, which you won't hear anymore on the radio. But Veloute was the song that broke Julian Lennon. And the label at the time sent us kind of a blank disc. And we put the disc on the turntable and dropped the needle down. And we thought we were listening to a lost John Lennon track. We really did. We thought, uh-oh, where do they find this? And we've got to play this. And the same day we got a call from the label telling us that was a brand new song from John's son Julian called Veloute, and you need to start playing it. And we did. We didn't need a whole lot of cajoling to put that song on the air. We didn't need much coaxing. So in the case of Steve Perry and the music industry today, I am a throwback. I am somebody who doesn't fit in. I get it with the current scene. I totally understand that, and I'm totally comfortable with that, but I am going to rail against how it works these days because it doesn't make sense. Ed Sheeran does not need 2 years on the charts. He doesn't need it, okay? Should be a normal cycle, 20, 30 weeks. But again, back in the 1990s, because all these formats started to fragment, you had things, charts being invented like the adult rock charts, because again, people who were fine with the way things were, and people, by the way, only in their 20s and 30s. We weren't all old fogies at that point. We were people that were still fairly young, and we're like, hey, what'd you do to our music? You pulled the rug right out from under us, and now we got to go, listen to adult contemporary radio so we can hear, like Hit Me With Your Best Shot, and then some new song by, the Cardigans or something, and you're just like, okay, this isn't what I really want to listen to. I mean, the format is kind of dead. And the fact that Steve Perry got on there, it's a good thing. It's almost a miraculous thing. But it is Steve freaking Perry, like I keep saying. And I'm not sure who else can really break through. This song should have gone all the way to number one. All the way to number one. Seriously. And some people will say, well, Dave, it's probably not good enough. Oh, contraire. Have you heard the stuff that's on these radio stations? That's new, that's in rotation? No, this is definitely good enough. It's definitely within the margin of error as far as being number one. It could be number 5, number 3. Foolish Heart went to number 2 in 1984. There's no reason why We're Still Here can't get to at least number 5 in the year 2019. We're dealing with and talking about a legend, and his name is Steve Perry. And he deserves some radio airplay. If he's not going to get it, yeah, pretty much, I don't know who else in the same, age category is going to get that kind of airplay or even close to it. I know Rod Stewart did okay earlier this year, but I don't know. I think most of it is over, so I guess you do have to go back to listening to the music on your iPod. It is a bit of a shame. All right. A video, kind of a Seinfeld-like video here, but we'll be back soon with more, so stay tuned.